Welcome. Welcome to the Brady and Gold Knuckleheads podcast. And after getting a pretty bad whooping today, my main man Reggie is still with me. Thank you for not ditching me today, Reggie. I appreciate that.
Hey, we played like knuckleheads today. That's for sure. We
Yeah.
played like knuckleheads, man. That was I hate to say it, man. It was almost a waste of time.
Yeah, it was it went from a game where Washington was making a lot of mistakes to basically saying, Buffalo, go ahead and just take over the last quarter and just do whatever you want. Offensively, defensively, just do whatever you want. We're gonna help you with our own mistakes, and this is gonna blend into an ugly mess. And that's what the game turned out to be in the end, right?
Yeah, man, I'm speechless to some extent because the game was a head scratcher. And and I know people will look at the final score and deem potentially what happened, but when you actually watch the game, it was almost mind-boggling. I mean, Washington went into the fourth quarter down only 16 points. That's two scores.
Right.
And at that point, the defense was bend but don't break, so to speak. But they'd held a Buffalo offense to 16 points. So if the offense can get a touchdown and then the defense continue to play well and potentially get another touchdown, you might have a different ball game. But that's not what happened. It's like the mistakes that happen early and often continued throughout the game, and to the point it finally the dam just opened, it broke, and Buffalo puts up 21 points in the fourth quarter, and the final score looks to be as it was a complete blowout.
Right.
But the game overall, like I said, man, was somewhat of a head scratcher because we picked some week to essentially come out and just lay an egg, man. I don't know. I don't know what to say
Yeah.
about it.
Well, I mean, and to your point, I said as we're going into the fourth quarter, I said if I would have told you before the game, I would have looked into a crystal ball and told you going into the fourth quarter that Buffalo had only scored 16 points, you would have thought, man, we're probably winning, or we're right there, 16 to 17, 16 to 14, 16 to 21 in the favor of Commanders. But obviously we had a big goose egg. I mean, Josh Allen had a productive game, but for 37 points, he didn't have a special game. He only had 218 yards passing. He had another 46 rushing, which were some back breaking rushes that he had. But other than Diggs having 8 catches for 111 yards, outside of him, and he hurt us, don't get me wrong, but outside of him, everybody else's stats were very, very generic, very vanilla, average NFL stats. But the one stat obviously that stands out is 5 turnovers, 4 picks by Sam Howell, and Gibson had another fumble.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Do Josh Allen need to throw for a lot of yards when he's given short fields?
Oh, absolutely. I don't disagree.
We're throwing interceptions and turning the ball over, and they take over possession, and they're automatically in field goal range. Like, for example, in the first half, they get the ball and one play for 35 yards. I mean, if they never moved another yard, they had a field goal, but yet all it took was one play for 35 yards. And I don't remember, but there were several where Washington turned the ball over and Buffalo immediately had the ball in Washington territory. So I say that to say it lessened the number of times Josh Allen and the Buffalo offense needed to drive the length of the field, or we scored, got a field goal, touchdown, and forced them to start at the 20, 25 yard. That they rarely had to do that because we just turned the ball over and gave them short field and said defense going to stop them. And for the most part, they were
I don't
doing
disagree.
that.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. Our defense, overall did well. But and they did have some short fields. I agree. But my point was when you see 37 points, you expect some big offensive numbers, whether it's passing numbers, whether it's rushing numbers, whatever it is, you expected to see some big numbers. And like I said, if you didn't watch the game and you saw the Buffalo scored 37 and you've got some players on Buffalo on your fantasy football team, you'd be like, oh man, I racked up some serious yardage or whatever. And unless you had Diggs, there wasn't a whole lot there for you. Sam Howell, obviously had the 4 interceptions. He was 19 of 29 for 170 yards. That's not going to cut it with 0 interceptions, right? You need to be 200 plus. 200 should definitely be the low point for production offensively in the NFL. B-Rob he only had 10 carries. I think we had 13, I think it was total for the day.
13 total.
But B-Rob had 10 for 70 yards. And I had mentioned, Gibson had another fumble on one of his 2 carries. So it was an ugly game. I think, you look at when you lose a game, you look at where do we go wrong, right? Was there, and I know quickly on social media, I'm looking out there at social media, both on some Facebook Washington fan pages as well as Twitter. And man, there's a major dog pile on Sam Howell. And not that he doesn't deserve some criticism, but my number one concern at the end of watching that game is, man, that offensive line was bad. They were bad today. They gave Sam minimal time. They gave him the bare minimum or less time consistently throughout the entire game from beginning to end. And yes, Sam Howell had some bad passes. Yes, Sam Howell probably should have thrown the ball away a couple times, but the reason why he should have thrown it away a couple times was because the rush was coming in. But there was times where there's no way that he could throw the ball away if he was truly looking downfield, right? He had to be watching the line collapse so he could quickly throw the ball away or take the sack. And so far and away, my biggest concern at the end of this game isn't Sam Howell. It is the offensive line.
Well, no question that the offensive line didn't help our quarterback. Anyone knows that typically football games are won in the trenches, right? On offensive line, defensive line. And, Sam threw 4 interceptions, and I get it. I get how they look. There's certainly some plays that Sam made some poor decisions on. And this is where we talked about before the season started, where there are going to be games where he makes decisions where you go, man, that was a bad throw, bad decision on Sam. And that was being a young guy learning. When you're running and you just basically throw the ball to the defender, it's like pump fake, Sam, right? Get the guy up in the air, right? Just get him in the air and just let him. And then you can either, once he comes down or on his way down, then you can throw the ball, or you just keep running with your leg, but you just throw it right to the guy. He picks it off and runs a pick 6. There are times where he's trying to extend plays or didn't have time to even extend the play because the offensive line just let not let them, but allowed the defense to get in and end up totaling 9 sacks. I got to believe well, and I meant to look this up, but Sam may be the most sacked quarterback through 3 games at this point.
Probably.
Because I think almost every game this season, he's the offensive line has allowed 5+ sacks in each of these 3 games.
Right.
This is bad, man. The thing that I question is, and I said this week 1, and that was our pass to run ratio. And I don't want to get into this whole thing about, running the ball is old school and all that. And I'm not talking about going back to that type of run the ball. But by comparison, Washington ran the ball 13 times as a team.
Right.
Not individual. As a team, we ran the ball a total of 13 times for a total of 105 yards. Buffalo, by comparison, as a team, and Buffalo has a franchise quarterback, might I add, a number 1 Pro Bowl All-Pro receiver. But as a team, they ran the ball 33 times for 168 yards. And oh, by the way, their quarterback threw the ball 32 times. So 32 pass attempts, 33 rushes as a team. Washington throws the ball 29 times and ran the ball 13 times. And look, their guy has a better track record as an NFL passer than our guy. Our guy was officially on his 4th start. And Josh Allen has played a lot of footballs. And just real quick, I'm going to give you these numbers here, Ken.
Go ahead.
Entering the game today, so through 2 games, Josh Allen had thrown for a total of 501 yards. Sam Howell had thrown for 510. Josh Allen had a total of 70 attempts, passes.
Right.
Sam Howell was 78.
Right.
So we're throwing the ball at a rate of what NFL quarterbacks, we got a young guy with a suspect offensive line, and yet at the rate we're throwing the ball doesn't make sense to me. So after today's game, I added in today's stats. And by comparison, okay, Sam Howell, 671 yards, Josh Allen, 728. But the difference is Sam has 99 passes and Josh Allen has 110. So again, I'm going to go back to this again. I asked the question about being pass happy with the Airbnb offense, which I am not knocking it. I love the creativity. But at some point, you have to make the adjustment and realize you can't just put it all on the shoulders of your young quarterback. You got to help him out in other ways.
Right. I don't disagree. I think I had less problem the first 2 games. This game here, clearly, we needed to run the ball more and have some sense of balance. I said before the season and the first 2 games, it kind of held true that, and I said, like I said before the season, that we were probably going to be a 60-40 ratio, 60% passing, 40% running, and for offensively productive teams, that's the ratio in today's NFL. But today, when you see what I say, 29 attempts and 13 runs, that's out of whack. You're at what, 25% roughly rushing attempts.
It's out of whack when also you're sitting here watching and the guy doesn't have time to pass the ball.
Correct.
Next thing you know, you're getting sacked, you're getting pressure, and now you're 2nd and long, 3rd and long. I mean, we were constantly behind the chains. And I can understand what you could say what that led to some of the imbalance in the passing. But holy cow, man, it's like you passed the ball and that created the negative plays that you're trying to avoid.
Right.
Um, I and again, I'm not advocating for us to go back to this old school 90s, 80s, 90s style, just run the ball, pound the rock, you know, rarely pass the ball. That's not what I'm advocating here. But you got to read the game. You got to be able to look at the game and be able to say, okay, what's happening here? What can we do? What's working? Or where's the adjustment? And today was a classic case of, man, maybe the adjustment should have been you go to a little bit more of a run game, or you do some more quick passes, some screens, or something different than just allowing Sam Howell to drop back there, man, and the defense, I mean, the offensive line ultimately giving up 9 sacks.
Well,
That's just crazy.
Yeah, and I want to, I guess, in a roundabout way, one of the things we talk about coming into the game and how we rush the passer, right? With Chase and Montez on the end, about creating a box or a U to contain Josh Allen. That's exactly what Buffalo did to Howell. He didn't have an escape route, right? Most of the time, there was no way. The ends went up, but they didn't go up so high beyond Josh that all of a sudden he could run out to the left or to the right. It was definitely a containment type of scenario. And to their credit, our offensive line's demise, they never let Sam Howell get comfortable. Right, he'd be comfortable for a couple passes, and then there was a rushed pass. There was, a pass that he gets completed, then he gets sacked. I mean, there was never a steady rhythm for really an entire drive. That he was comfortable back there without any major pressure or sacks or whatever it is. On the other side of the ball, the defense didn't do bad, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to blame any one person, but Cody Barton, he's out there running around watching things happen. He's not tackling. He's getting juked and blocked and run past everybody. He's always an arm's reach away from everywhere that he goes, everything that he's doing. Maybe there was a reason after all that he was a backup linebacker and a special teams linebacker. Unfortunately, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think we're missing Cole Holcomb more than we recognize. And again, I'm not making Cole Holcomb out to be any kind of all pro, anything like that. He was the steady player that we needed that we don't have at this point. Our linebackers are being mediocre is being kind.
Ken, how's Cole doing right now? I'm curious. How's Cole doing right now?
I'm just telling you from Cole, the last few years, we got production out of him.
Look, man, let me just say this.
He was the leading tackler, I think, a couple years. I know at least one, if not 2 years.
Okay.
He was the leading tackler.
That's fine. He can tackle somebody. But that's cool.
You got to be there, but you got to be there to tackle him. You see Cody coming up on the back end of plays.
Okay, listen. That's fine. I get it. Cody Barton through 3 games is not making everyone miss Cole Holcomb. I get it. I totally get it. But listen, man, the deal here right now is, as I said earlier today, I'm done. I'm out on the Jamin Davis. Jamin Davis, if Jamin Davis stepped up to be the first round pick that everyone expect and wanted him to be, you're not worried about Cole Holcomb. You're not worried about Barton. But because you're not getting any type of production out of your former first round pick, it's highlighting more so that you need the other guy. And that's why I feel like the Cole Holcomb, Cody Barton situation is being highlighted, because you're not getting the production out of Jamin Davis.
But Davis does he does make plays.
Man, stop.
What play? He's not living up. He's not living up to first round expectations. I 100% agree, but he is there. if you're not looking for Cody Barton, you don't even know he's on the field.
I don't know that Jammy's on the field. Okay, no different. I don't know. Come on, Jamie Davis ain't out here making plays, man. I'm sorry. I listen. The bar is so low that he makes one play in the game, and all of a sudden we're like, there's Jamie Davis. Come on, man. Come on. Jamie Davis. The only difference between Jamie Davis, Cody Barton, and Cole Holcomb is where they was drafted. You're not getting any more production out of one or the other. If draft status, draft position was not equal, I mean, it was irrelevant. You could do a toss up and pick either one of three of those linebackers.
I'm going to definitely disagree. I'm definitely going to disagree on that, but
that's fine. But and what? Just because he's faster? Look, I don't care that he's fast.
He's there to make plays. Look, I should have looked it up because I wrote it down about commenting on him. I should have looked to see, did Cody Barton even have a tackle today?
I mean,
what's that?
How many did Jamie Davis has?
If he has one, he's better than Cody. You were even laughing about how much he got juked.
Exactly.
I don't know if it was Diggs or somebody caught a pass right in front of him, and he was like, he was like stuck, like he couldn't even move to try and tackle the guy. He's backing up, he's dropping back into pass coverage. And he's just a body. He's what Norwell was last year to the offensive line. That's what Cody Barton is to the linebackers this year.
Fair enough. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Cody Barton is not underperforming. All right. But what I am going to tell you is we're sitting here debating on who's not as bad as the other. They're both playing terrible, man. They're both playing terrible. Period. Including Jamie Davis. Yes. So
I'm not standing up for Jamin Davis, but again, if I'm giving Jamin Davis a C and he's the best one, I need everybody to at least my linebackers to get a C. Not a,
as I said, the
F
bar is low
or MIA.
Okay, all right. Well, listen. Either way, nobody's out there making plays on defense. It's continuing to be the bend but don't break, right? This is if you want to be a top ranked defense, then these are the kind of games where you need to show up as well, right?
Right.
Where was John Allen? I think Deron Payne I remember him making at least the one big play where he
Payne made fourth and one. Payne made a handful of plays.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. We where was Montez? Chase made a few. He popped there a few times and made a couple impact on some plays, but at the end of the day, Josh Allen was escaping out of the pocket and still making plays down the field. So do you credit Chase for flushing him out? But yet the guy's still converting the play. I mean, so that's what I'm saying. So at the end of the day, your good defenses steps up and showcase and show out on a big stage against good teams. And I don't know that we did that. And again, Sam and the offense put them in some bad spots with some short fields, putting the pressure on them right away. I get it. But again, if you're gonna keep talking to me and tell me that we got this elite defense, then the expectation is you need to play at an elite level. I don't need to have you missing games. I don't want to hear what sometimes or maybe you make a play late in the game. I don't know who it was. In fact, I think it was Jamie Davis. Makes a play late in the game. We're getting blown out, and he's standing up. Just go sit down.
Right.
You're getting blown out, and you made one play in the fourth quarter. So again, collectively as a team here, it's not looking as if we're much better. And I'm not ready to overreact on it. As I said today at the bar, you go and you beat Philly next week. If now you're 3-1. Chicago game, that's a winnable game. You're 4-1. Atlanta, that's a winnable game. You're 5-1. You end up being 5-1, and no one cares about this Buffalo game. Now, nationally, again, they're going to say, well, we haven't beat anyone of those 5 wins because everyone we beat, other than the Philly, are teams that aren't very good. And the one team we did lose to, Buffalo, playoff contender. But my point being is it makes things look a little bit different record-wise if they go on and win, and I think people will quickly be able to wash away this Buffalo game because the Buffalo game was just awful ugly. So we'll see, but
Yeah.
it's got to start next week, man, because
Yeah, I'm
Philly,
interested
in
next.
my opinion,
Yeah.
is beatable.
Well,
It's
and again, when we make some of these comments about Sam Howell, I mean, if this would have been week one, our very first week of game, and this is what we saw from Sam Howell, our concern level would be a lot higher. But we've had week one and week two where we saw some poise and some really good throws, and obviously some wins and some drives that he had. If all I'm looking at is today, of course I'd have a lot of concern with Sam Howell. Based off of that, this is our first what I would classify as a playoff team that we played, and based off of this game and the three games we've played this year, we're not in the playoff caliber. We're not playing at a playoff caliber compared to other teams, right? Um, and that needs to change if that's the kind of team that we're going to be, right? If we're going to be a playoff team, you got to beat other playoff teams, and even if you lose games, you can't get blown out like this. You got to show up. You got to put up a fight. You got to take it into the fourth quarter at least, if not the last 5 minutes of any game. If you're a playoff team,
yes, and things like and as we talked about, Sam has to shoulder some of the responsibility today. Yeah,
absolutely.
we can blame the offensive line for some of the sacks, but so is Sam. Sam had 2 red zone turnovers.
Yep.
I mean the offense is driven the field in field goal position, and yet he turned the ball low, threw an interception in the red zone, not once but twice.
Right.
That's on Sam, man. You got that's something you got to get better with. But I'm not a big moral victory kind of guy. But I do try to look at, just like the team goes back and look at the tape and say, okay, what can we do? What can we learn from this? This might be one of those deals where we need to learn from it because we were 2-0 going into this game and people were excited, and I get it. But in both of those games, those were comeback wins. It's not
Right.
like we went out here and dominated these teams and we let them throughout the game and walked away and whoop somebody's butt, right? Both of those games, in order to be 2-0, we had to fight back to win those games. And those two teams, Arizona and I'm drawing a blank. Who do we win for week 2?
Denver.
Denver, sorry. They weren't great teams, but
Right.
you still gotta give yourself credit for coming back and keep grinding, coming back from that.
Right.
And so this may be a situation where maybe now everybody can kind of get back and go, hey, maybe we're not who we thought we were, And so maybe there's something here to kind of get everybody to be like, I know we were 2-0. We were starting to believe the hype a little bit. And maybe this will make them get back to come down to earth a little bit and maybe refocus and get back to realize, man, we're not where we thought we were. We're not who we thought we were going to be. And there's still a lot more work to be done. That's the only thing I can hope for that can come out of this, that they can go back and look at the tape and analyze this and just kind of see where they can improve, because man, this is bad, bro.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
bad.
I mean, I think I hope and I think that we're not going to continue to see games this ugly. We may lose. Obviously, I don't think we're going to go 16-1 for the season. But you want to be competitive in all your games, winning or losing. This one here, it seemed like the first half we were kind of competitive, even though things weren't working out. And then, just like I said, the gates kind of opened up. I mean, I kind of go back to Ron and his leadership, which I'm hoping shows up this season or immediately. Because we had some, a year or two ago, we had lost like 4 out of the first 5 or 5 out of the first 6 games. And somehow we kind of put some streaks together and won some games and kind of like made things interesting. I don't want to get behind at that point again. but it goes to show that things can be turned around. Hopefully this offensive line can, we don't think that this offensive line is a top 5 offensive line, but they also can't be a bottom 5 offensive line. Not with the young quarterback, not with the team to have consistent success. So hopefully Bieniemy and crew can get the offensive line to give Hal that extra half a second. Second to half a second is a lifetime in the NFL as a quarterback. It also not only for Hal, but it gives the receivers, an extra 5 steps to get away, to make that cut, to get away from whoever's defending them. So it's not just a Sam Howell thing. It truly is a wide receiver thing as well, of giving them time to get open. So
yeah, and I don't know, man. I'm interested to see how this is going to play out with Antonio Gibson. I know Jennifer King and Randy Jordan, and Ron, and all those guys have talked to and looked at and discussed back and forth about Antonio Gibson and his ability to fumble the ball. I'm curious to see how this is all going to play out, man, because this has been pretty. This has been a big story the entire time that he has been here.
Yeah.
It's always the but with him, man. He has some good games, or he can do this. He's this type of runner. He's this and that, but he can't hold on to the ball. And it's going to be interesting. I'm very curious to see how this is going to play out, man, because again, between Ron, Randy Jordan, Jennifer King, and then also the fact that his offensive coordinator is a former NFL running back, I don't know how this is going to play out, and I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with Antonio Gibson.
Yeah, I know a lot of people were high on Antonio Gibson with EB coming in. I wasn't one of those people. I thought that B-Rob's skills would be opened up a little bit more, which we have seen some of them. Even though it's just been a few games, the first couple games we saw him catching more out of the backfield. I think with Gibson playing but not carrying, that tells me that every time he comes in, he's either just going to block or run out for a pass. If when one player struggles, that's an opportunity for another player. So if Rodriguez can pick up the blocking scheme, I would say the blocking scheme more than the being able to run the ball or catch out of the backfield. If he can pick up the blocking scheme and help out, we may end up seeing a lot more of him and a lot less of Gibson, moving forward.
Trade deadline. Antonio Gibson moved. Washington Commanders.
What are you going to get for him at this point?
I don't know. It's better than nothing.
Yeah, and that's why. I mean, you need to have him there just in case, but you may see his usage dwindling as we move through here. But time will tell.
Yeah.
But
ugly game, man. Ugly game.
These are the games you look at, and I think the coach. There's games where you lose, and you're like, man, we don't even want to look at that film because it's so bad. I think this is a game that you do look at and definitely point out, evaluate. Maybe promote different people along the offensive line, along linebackers, along wherever. But after you do that, you put this in the past, and Philly's not going to feel sorry for you. They're going to be licking their chops. They're going to be looking at this game film and seeing a lot of the things that Buffalo did and use that to their advantage. So you definitely have to tighten up, and we can talk about that when we review the Philly game coming up here.
Yeah, absolutely. Ugly game, man. Ugly game. That this is not one that makes me proud to be a fan, but I'm still here. I'm not going nowhere. And so hopefully, man, we can quickly watch this one and move on to the Philadelphia game, because again, you win that game next week at Philly, and all of a sudden, instead of 2-2, you're 3-1. I think we all feel better about it.
Oh yeah. It's a 100% different outlook if you go up to Philly and take care of business there. So but until the next podcast, I don't have anything else. Do you, Reg?
That's it, man. That's it. Wash it out.
Yeah, get rid of that. We'll just have to fight through our Monday mornings, right? Anticipation for Philadelphia. Peace out, knuckleheads.
Peace out.